Thank you very much once again, and I'm going to go straight into the presentation. And this is how I have organized my presentation this morning. We look at the financial planning and financial stewardship. And with this, I will give you two wise quotes. And these quotes, I have picked them from the Holy Bible and from the Holy Quran. I'm sure the audience would fall into either of the two categories. And we will go to the understanding of the grants. What is a grant? Who can give a grant? Eligibility for the grant. We will look at that. Am I eligible? Then we look at the types of grants, because I understand we run different types of businesses. We belong to different sectors. And so grants may not be uniform. Depending on where you sit, you will find where you fall as we discuss the types of grants. Then we'll go to the grant financing. And I pose a question here. Is it a viable alternative? We have loans. We have other forms of financing. I know people who are getting money from families and friends to start businesses. So is the grant in its true definition an alternative and a viable one? Common grant misconceptions, and these common grant misconceptions we are going to discuss will speak to the wise quotes that we are going to first of all look at. And then we'll go to the pathways to successful grant sourcing. Because most people believe that once you have identified the source, it is an automatic for the grant to come through. But there are some key pathways that we are going to discuss. And then we look at the key principles and considerations. I will do a demonstration. This demonstration is about a template from one of the donor organizations that has put out a call, and we are supposed to respond to the call. So I have just picked out a few sections to show you the extent of the effort you need to comply and meet the requirements of the call. And then finally, we'll discuss. So let's go to the significance of the financial planning and responsible stewardship. Why this subtopic is very important is because it's not about getting the grant. It's about planning to get the grant, and I will show you what it takes to do the planning. And two, once the grant has come in, is it going to be used to meet the objectives for which you got it or for which the donor has set? Are you going to have that mutuality between you and the donor, how you have used the grant? The donor wants to benefit because they have goals, and you have the mission to pursue, and therefore you also want to benefit. So these quotes are speaking to that. And responsible stewardship is not just about managing the grant. It poses also a moral and integrity question. So we are going to see what that means. Going to the first quote. This is from the Bible, Luke 14:28. For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and look at the cost, whether he has got enough to finish that tower? This is a wise quote from the Bible. What does this quote speak to us about? I know you may be having a number of questions in your mind, but in the interest of time, the quote, we can derive a few things from this quote, and one of them is about careful planning. Before embarking on any financial endeavor, there is a lot of planning. You have to sit down. The Bible is saying you sit down first, evaluate the cost, because it is a grant, fine, but there is cost involved in accessing that grant. So that cost, if you match it with the benefit you are going to receive at the end of the day, if you match it with the donor expectation, do they match? What is the leverage? So that is the first inference that we get from this quote. The second that I get from the quote is that it highlights the importance of assessing your internal capacity Do you have the assets? Do you have the resources? Do you have the commitment? So that one wants to look at you to assess whether you are ready for the grant. These days, people talk of, are you investor ready? Now here, are you grants ready? Can the grants come in at this point? And finally, from me, I think it is a critical reminder for us that we must, that it poses a question of value. The value in what? In two things, the value in prudence and oversight. We should be able to look beyond the grant. If this grant came today and we used it at the end of 1 year or 2 years, depending on the duration, because you are going to sign a contract, at the end of 2 years, then what happens? If you never accessed another grant, are you able to proceed and move on with what you have received in the first round? So this, I found this quote very important, and I thought I could share with you. Look at the Holy Quran. What is it saying? And here we are getting it from the Surah Al-Baqarah 254. This is the same as the Bible, where you have the chapter and the verse. Chapter 2, verse 254, you have it right there. Or you have believed, spend from what? Let me try to remove this. Sorry. Or you who have believed, spend from what? From that which we have provided, because there comes a day in which there is no exchange and no friendship, no intercession. And the disbelievers, they are the wrongdoers. This one is also very important because it speaks to the wise spending of the grant, the wise allocation of the grant, the wise investment of the grant's money that you have received in ways that can bring a positive change to the community. Later, shortly, we are going to see that grants are not just about grants. Every dollar that we spend should really contribute to the local economic transformation, the transformation of the communities, the social change, behavioral change, job creation. All these things should be realized at the end of grants utilization. That is when we say the grant has been successful. If we don't see that, then even the donor during evaluation, we might have a problem with the donor. In other words, resources should be used to the good causes, and it's not about making money, but it's about how to sustain the making of the money question. And with this, allow me to also share with you a story. It's a very important story about one gentleman in a place called the Ansar community. Ansar community is found in Medina, and this is famous for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This story also speaks to these two quotes, but it also speaks to what I'm going to present. I hope you find it interesting. And the story is about a gentleman from the Ansar community who, at one time when Prophet Muhammad was moving around that community, he comes down to him and he begs some money from him. And then the Prophet was not shocked because he was a man of the people. He was always with the community. And so he asks this man that you mean you do not have anything at all? And the man said, I do not have anything. So the Prophet asked again, what about at your home? Don't you have anything at your home? So the gentleman says, at home I have one cloth, you can imagine, one cloth which I wear, and it is the same cloth I put on the floor to sleep and sit, and then a bowl which I use to drink water. These are the only two articles that I have at home. So the Prophet looks at him with empathy and says, okay, what you do for me, go home and bring those two articles, the cloth and the bowl, which he uses to drink the water. So the gentleman goes home and brings the two items. When he brings the two items, he's shocked what the Prophet does. The Prophet puts the two articles to auction. And then he says, who can give me money in these two items? And then the man is stunned and is shocked and says, I have brought these two items. I thought the man had an alternative for me. And I'm using the word alternative deliberately because this is the topic for today. And this is the man now auctioning my items. Then what? So the first bidder gives 1 dirham. And then, of course, you know how auction goes. You have to auction until you get the maximum. So he asks if there is some other higher bidder, and the next higher bidder comes up and he says, me, I can give 2 dirham. So there is 1 strike, second strike, third strike, and the second dirham person takes the 2 items. So the prophet calls the gentleman and says, now you come. I want you to take these 2 dirhams. The 1 dirham, use it to buy the food, you take it at your home. And then the other dirham, you buy an axe. I think we know an axe, embassy. So he says, take this axe, buy the axe and you bring it here. So the man does as the prophet had told him. Buys food, brings the axe. But the axe did not have a handle. And when he brings the axe, the prophet does something so amazing again. He gets a stick, which is supposed to be a handle. He himself fixes the handle into the axe. And then he gives it to the gentleman and he says, you go to the forest, cut the firewood, and then when you get that firewood, take it to the market, you sell it, and whatever money you get, you come again and we discuss. So the man goes for 2 weeks, he's in the forest, he gets 10 bundles of firewood, and then brings the bundles to the prophet. But he did not bring the bundles to the prophet. What he does, at that time, the food at his home was finished. So he used the 5 dirham to buy the food. And then he brought the 5 dirham to the prophet. So the prophet was happy that the guy now had the food at home and he had the extra 5 dirham. And then he teaches him a lesson. And he says, okay, there is the issue of you not knowing the capacity that you have at the moment to access and obtain certain things that you rightly deserve. He had 2 items in the house. These were his assets that he had. And if we go to the definition of assets, the way we know it, an asset is anything of value that you have and you control as a result of past events, which have the capacity to generate the future returns. That is an asset. He had 2 assets. They were of value because they generated 2 dirham, and they were obtained as a result of what he did in the past to get money and buy them. But here now, they are being used to generate even more returns in the future. So sometimes we have certain assets. They may be tangible, they may be not tangible. This gentleman had only 2, and he was looking at himself as a desperate, despondent person who had to go to the street and beg. But the prophet has offered him an alternative, which now has brought serious dividends, and he never wanted to add any other lesson. He's now going to go on himself, he venture in the firewood and other things, and he makes money for himself and never to beg again. So I found this a very, very important story for us, and I'm going to be referring to it. But the other important thing is you see how the prophet participates into the process of getting this man out of his desperate situation. He fixes the handle into the axe. Then he shows him the way. He wants the accountability at every step. How much have you got? Show me, come back and report. All these things are very critical to the topic we are discussing today. If you go to money from the donor, we are going to see the type of accountabilities that you have, the responsibilities that you have, and the donor usually wants to see progress from point A to point B. That is why we carry out the evaluations. And if we have spent the money wisely, definitely we shall have a positive evaluation. And if the money has not been allocated properly, we shall have a negative evaluation. That one will affect us in getting subsequent funding in terms of grants. So that is why these wise quotes, I considered them very important. And that's why I have shared with you that story. So then we go to the next slide, and I'm asking a question again. What is a grant? Who gives a grant? Who is eligible for the grant? And from the definition of the grant, you are going to see that there are certain characteristics that the grants have that are slightly different from the other monies that we may have utilized in the past. Now, look at that. A financial award given by a donor or a resource partner. There are many words that we can use to define who gives the grant. A donor, a resource partner, a philanthropist, a funder, a patron. There are many words that we can use, and other write-ups will use, but they mean the same thing. One who gives the financial award. And that one who gives the financial award can be an agency, it can be a corporation, it can be a foundation, it can be a trust, it can be an international development organization, it can be an NGO, etc. But this financial award given by these agencies, these corporations, these foundations, these trusts, these international development organizations is given to who? Look at my second bullet. You as an individual can access a grant. You as an organization can access a grant. You as a community, you can access a grant. And that grant is to a specific purpose. It is to a specific project. It is to a specific activity or a specific initiative. So a grant is money that you receive, a financial award that you receive, and it is supposed to be for a specific purpose. That is what we want to emphasize: a project, an initiative, or an activity. So is the grant interest-based or non-interest-based? Is it repayable or not repayable? And which objectives does the grant seek to achieve? Whose objectives? For the donor or for the recipient of the grant? This one I highlighted because it is going to be very important as we go on. The grants are typically non-interest-based. There is no interest on a grant. They are non-repayable funds provided for certain initiatives that align with the donor's objectives and priorities. This is very, very important. And we are going to look at it when it comes to the misconceptions about grants. Whose objectives and priorities is the grant supposed to meet? Are they yours or they are for the donor? That question usually confuses people a lot, and they end up misusing the grants and also frustrating their chances of accessing further grants in future. So it is very important. But somebody can also ask, if the grants are non-interest based, we have known some loans that are non-interest based. So are they also grants? The answer is no. The loans can be can be non-interest based as a loan. You can get a loan without interest, but that loan will be repayable as you have agreed in the contract. But a grant is money that you receive as a financial award that has no interest on it and is not repayable. So that differentiates it from the loan. And then it aligns with the donor objectives. If you go to the bank, you want to get a loan, the bank has got a policy. If you want to get an agricultural loan, these are the conditions that you fulfill. But you who has gone for the loan, you go there with an objective to meet. And usually the bank makes sure that your objective is right, and they monitor you if you have allocated it for purpose. So you can see the slight difference that is there. And then look at what comes next. Grants do not require repayment, but usually have specific requirements for accountability. There are certain responsibilities and accountability requirements that are there, and I can mention some of them. When you get a grant, usually the grant has conditions. First of all, you must allocate to the specific purpose and activity or initiative or a project that we have seen. Secondly, you have to implement within a certain geographical jurisdiction, as the donor has mentioned. Number 3, you have to do reporting. There has to be reports and accountabilities, and you have to answer questions and meetings and clarifications. So all that you must spare time and fulfill these requirements. And then grants play a crucial role in funding projects, promoting social change, and addressing community needs. I think we talked about it in the quote from the Holy Quran, and we said at least the grant must be used for a common good, a good cause, and should create a positive change within the community. So as we see the principles down, you are going to see that the principles of grants, they must create some impact somewhere, a socio-economic impact, and we are going to see how that can be achieved. That means that if you are preparing a grant proposal, if you are responding to the call for a grant, when we are writing, we have to make sure that it fits within those dimensions. Are we going to meet the socio-economic objective? And I define for you what that means and what kind of benchmarks we shall see to be able to meet that requirement. So that is the grant, who receives it, who gives it, and for what purpose. I think we are now very clear. Now let's look at the types of grants. The types of grants, meanwhile, are derived from the purpose and the funding source. Look at number 1. If it is a project grant, it is definitely awarded for specific projects or programs, and we can mention projects and programs. There are many: community-based, research-based, education-based, faith-based communities, cultural-based communities. We now have cultural institutions that are running projects for the youth, for the women. They can also get project grants that can help them. We have organizations which also can, start a project for a certain purpose, depending on their mandate. So the grants that you get that are specific to certain projects or programs, those ones are project grants. And usually when the donor is advertising for the call, they are specific. We should be able to see them as we read the call. Then we have the operating or technical assistance grants. These ones are supposed to enhance the capacity of an organization to deliver their mandate better. So they look at the internal organization, the structures, the systems, the skills that the staff have. So you can also access a grant that can capacitate, that can retool the internal staff and systems to function better, so that you deliver your mandate effectively, or even scale up, reach out to the regions that we have not been able to reach because of that technical assistance support. And then number 3, you have the seed funding or startup grants. These ones, as the name suggests, you are starting up a project or a business, and then you will access the project, this money to help you get off the ground. Some other people call it the catalytic fund, except that the catalytic fund goes beyond the project startup. It will go for some time, but otherwise the thinking is also the same. The catalytic fund, it helps you to catalyze operations, get you off the ground, because when you are starting, especially we who are entering business space for the first time, you find it is very hard to start. Even doing a feasibility, something like a feasibility or preparing a business plan is very hard. So doing some small market intelligence and research for you to understand the market you are venturing into might be very hard. So the donor understands that. And also they send out specific calls that are seed funding of nature or startup in nature, and then you are able to access that and implement your business. So you can see most of the time grants, they get their names based on the purpose and the source of funding. Continuation of the types of grants, we have capital grants. These ones are specifically allocated to infrastructural upgrades or acquisition, construction for the first time, so that you have capacity. Remember, we defined assets. You can see these are of asset nature. We defined assets. You need assets to enable you generate more returns and cash flow streams for the future. So some grants come and they are called CAPEX or capital grants. So they help you to acquire assets or construct assets or upgrade what you have so that you enhance your capacity to deliver your mission better. Then we have program development grants. These ones support the development of projects. And they cover things like scoping studies. You know, when you want to design a project, you want to understand certain things in the area where you want to set up the project. Suppose you want to set up the project in the East. You want to go to the East and find out the local economics. What are the local economics? What type of businesses are people doing? What size of businesses are they doing based on the annual cash, annual turnover and all that, and the assets they have? The sales, you want to understand that. Whom do they collaborate with? Where are the markets? Those are the local economic dynamics you want to start before you. Where do they get the money? Is it from circles? Is it from banks? So you want to understand that space before you sit down to design a program. Otherwise, if you didn't do that, the program will not be relevant. And donors understand that that effort usually is hard, yet the intervention is required, and they give out monies to support that. And then 5, you have program development grants. Those support these are the ones I've described. Then you have innovation grants or challenge funds. I think you have heard of the innovation challenge fund or innovation grants. These ones, the only uniqueness is that they are usually very, very competitive. You go through a competitive bidding process. You demonstrate that your project is the best in terms of its innovation, creativity, unique ideas, technology integration that you are going to have, the type of approach that you are going to use to implement your project and benefit the community. Remember, at the end of the day is community impact. And at the end of the day, you demonstrate that you achieve the impact. The impact will be positive, it will be socio-economic, but above all, the project will sustain even when the innovation grant has ended. So these are the common types of grants that we are going to interface with as we navigate the space of grants. Now, the question, is grant financing a viable alternative? This question is very, very important because I will just give an example of COVID. Remember, here we are talking of business recovery series. This is what I understood, that the context of my presentation is within the business recovery series. If we were running a business during COVID time, you would connect very well that after COVID had ended and somebody had a loan in the bank, the bank continued calculating the interest, accumulating the interest on the loan. The business had stopped on this other side. If at that time somebody came and gave you a grant, even if it is for 5 million, you would really be happy because you would now then try in a way to balance the pressure. So grants can help to smooth the cash flow of a business. That's what I mean in the second last bullet. Grants facilitate research, the initial assessment, which I talked about, surveys for project design. There is what we call proof of concept. I think you have heard proof of concept. People talk about it a lot. What does it mean? Proof of concept means that you have got an idea for a project. And that project is to help the people of the slum communities to be able to have the water. And if you put a well for them, also you plan how that well is going to be protected, how it is going to be maintained, etc., and how people are going to benefit from it as they pay so that the well is sustained. Because maintenance is a cost. So I'm just saying this is my small project that I'm thinking in a mind. Now, from my mind to paper is what we call the transcribing of an idea from the mind to the paper. Now you have it on the paper as your idea. You want to help the people in the slum community have sustainable water source in terms of the well. It will be protected. How will it be protected? Who will benefit from it? How will it be maintained? Resources will come from where? That is my small project. Now it is on paper. Now, if I submitted it to the donor might ask me to prove whether my concept actually will work. And I will say, but to prove means that I will have to test it out in the community. I'm saying the community people are going to pay some money. Are they willing actually to pay that kind of money? Or if they are paying it, where will it go? So all those finer details, the donor might give you the money to go and test that concept you are saying it will work. And then you bring, after testing and you have the results, you will now have the proof of a concept. So some donors, even if you give them a concept and it sounds good, they will not want to proceed. They will want to first test it out and say they get convinced. They want to validate certain things. They get convinced that this project or this idea is implementable and it is beneficial to that community. So that's what we mean by proof of concept. And sometimes you can get grant for that. And these days, actually, it is common. Even for research, you do a research proposal, the donor will say, okay, it is $500,000, go and test it out. Based on the results, we can see if we can scale it up. So those opportunities are also available, and we are going to share. Then supporting business startups. Remember, we talked of the catalytic, the transforming an idea that you have and getting it off the ground, so you'll get the catalytic funding. And then grants help us to address equity and inequality. And in brackets, I put ESGs and EDIs. These environmental, social, and governance benchmarks, these days, as we craft project proposals, there is a very, very big appetite for donors to see how the ESGs are being integrated in what you are proposing. Because environment, as you know, is now a topical issue. The social, how the women, the men, the people with disabilities, the refugees, if you are in that space, are being integrated into the equation of the grant is key. And then how the grant will be governed so that everyone will benefit. There is equity. And then EDIs, you have equity, diversity, and inclusion. I think Enterprise Uganda, I know they are very, very, they like these terms so much because they want to see everyone included, everyone accessing monies and affordable monies to do business. So EDIs is key. And there are those people in the community we know that they are disadvantaged in terms of accessing whatever kind of monies. And so that's why there is donor emphasis on the ESGs and EDIs in the way you present yourself to access the grant. Then we have capacity building. They help us to build capacity, build the technical capacity, build the operational capacity, infrastructural capacity to be able to implement your mission. And of course, they promote innovation. You should see people who are trying to compete for the Innovation Challenge funds. There's a lot of work that takes place, a lot of thinking that goes into proposing to access the innovation funding. I'll share with you something that I saw in Israel. In Israel, what they do, they have got annual conventions. And within these annual conventions, they invite everyone. As long as you are above 18, you are invited to that convention. What happens in the convention? There is a team of experts in all fields: environment, agriculture, ICT, technology, etc. Everyone is there, energy. So they are inviting ideas. We don't care how the nature of your idea, but as long as you have got an idea. In energy, you'll find energy experts. And then you say, for me, this is an idea that I have that I think can transform society. I can give an example that I have got an idea of where you use an app on your phone in your house. You call for a motorbike to come and pick you and take you to the market. I'm talking of the Uber terms now. So you present your idea, they will look at it, they will refine it. If it doesn't pass that year, you are given a chance to go back the next year and refine it in the meantime and represent it the next year until an idea comes up and is helpful and is helping the community. So it promotes a lot of creativity and innovation and thinking because you want to win that grant. But at the end of the day, you benefit. Also, the community will benefit and create the social impact that we are looking at. So the grant In other words, to answer the question, the grant financing is a viable alternative. But of course, in the next slides, we are going to see how do you position yourself to access these grant monies. This is the big question. Now, let's look at certain grant misconceptions. And I will go one by one because these are very, very important. Look at number one. This one is complacency. I have managed grants before. This is not new. We have seen people who speak like that. These ones are, it's not new. We can always win this grant. But while talking is good, successes have been very few in terms of accessing grants. So what we are saying is, if we have accessed the grant before, the terms and the conditions and the requirements of the next call might be very different. The donor might be different. The space might be different. The language might be different. So it is important that we take our time and understand whether you have done it before, whether you have got a lot of skills. This requires a humble mind to sit down and evaluate what they are calling and whether you can meet the criteria. Grants are often perceived as free money with no strings attached. My dear, we have already indicated that there are responsibilities, there are obligations attached to the grants, and that is why you sign a grant funding agreement. So it is not to be misconceived that it is just free money. There is an accountability somewhere. Even if somebody is not asking you, at least from the two quotes that we have given, somebody should be able to create something out of that money. And you can also stamp on your chest and say, yeah, we did it. Grants are only available for specific types of institutions and not others. So when you hear of grants, you say, those grants, I think they are for Enterprise Uganda. Those grants belong to Police Consult and I have no space. No, everyone is eligible to access the grant, but we must make ourselves investor ready. Belief that donors have ceased providing funding, especially these days, we know that donors are withdrawing and from funding us. And so there might be a misconception when you hear people talk and say, I think grants are no longer available. Grants are there. So this is some sort of demystification that grants are there. Let's prepare and go for it, like this we are going to discuss. Having funds to pay a consultant to develop for you a proposal or a concept automatically guarantees success in obtaining that grant. It's not a guarantee, my dear. You may have the money to pay the consultant, but the grant may fail to come. That can be a source of frustration. So it is not true. Belief that personal connections or political influence can secure a grant funding. This is also not correct. You may be connected, you may have some political influence, but you will still have to comply with the donor requirements for that call. Grants are awarded solely based on the level of need. Is it true? Maybe, maybe not, because remember what we said, that the donor has got priorities, donor has got objectives they are looking at. You also have your need. So the question is, how do you then align your need to fit the donor priority and the donor objective for that funding? This is the most complicated part. And even before I go any further, this one usually breeds what we call the mission creep, C-R-E-E-P. Mission creep is where you try to say, I have existed as a business and I have got a mission to pursue, but you know, this call is also important. We need this money. So even if the call does not match your mission, you want to go an extra length of making sure that you get that money. That is what we call a mission creep. And that mission creep may happen on one grant. If it happens on the second grant, it might now, we usually call it derail. There might be derailment. You move away from what you set out to achieve, and now you get lost somewhere because of that. So there is need to take care about that issue of the mission creep. Grant writing and management can be handled by a single person. This is a misconception. If you see a grant, Some people want to put the coal in their armpit and they say, this one, now that I know about it, if James does not know about it, I increase my chances of success. For us, what we have seen in this space is that the more information you share, the more chances you increase for yourself to succeed. Because you have to consult people, maybe people have got better experience than you, they are better informed the way than the way you are informed. They can advise here and there. So they point you to a good direction. Even they can refine your concept. And so grant writing is not a one-man show. It's a popular process. It's a consultative process. You need to contact, you need to interact, and you need to get more information. And then receiving one grant guarantees future funding opportunities. That is not true. You may receive one today, and 10 years down the road, you have not received any. So that also we need to manage our expectation when it comes to grant funding. Grant funding is a sustainable and reliable source of income for an organization. Some people start organizations and they say, Singa mfuna grant. If I can get a grant, then I will be good to go. If you get one grant, then you keep waiting for another grant. If that grant does not come and all the energies have been focused on it, it can be a problem. So grant funding is not a sustainable and reliable source of income. If it comes, that is fine. Let's use it judiciously. But if it never came, the business should be able to continue. Grant funds can be used for any purpose, regardless of the project's original idea. This one you can begin to answer yourself based on what we have discussed above. The grants, the donor has got priorities, donor has got the goals to pursue, but you equally have got your own, so there is need for matching there. And that is why you make a decision. Sometimes you look at a grant, it is very nice, but you decide not to go for it. Why? Because it is going to create the other mission creep, which is a very big problem. Grant funds can be used for any purpose regardless of the project idea. I can just tweak the previous proposal to submit to this donor. Some people have done some proposals before. So when they see a new call, they say, just bring the other proposal which we did, and then we tweak a few things and submit. This is a mistake that most of us commonly make, and they can frustrate the chances of accessing grants in the future. Wow, so are there any pathways to successful grant sourcing? Now, this is very, very important. If there are any pathways to successful grant sourcing. The very first one, we are saying we need to stay informed, we need to be prepared, we need to be organized for us to be able to tap into the grant opportunities. And how do we stay informed? In the brackets there, I put policies, I have put strategies, I have put plans, I have put statements, I have put priorities, I have put alignment, I have put internal capacity, the networks that we have. All these things are going to enhance our chances for accessing grants. In terms of staying informed, there's a lot of information that is circulating around. The question will be, I checked my phone the other day, the phone gives me a report on how I have utilized my phone in a week. So I get a weekly statement of the phone usage across various platforms. How have I been? How long have I spent on WhatsApp? I get a report. How long have I spent on LinkedIn? There's a report. How long have I spent making calls and doing SMSs? So at the end of the day, you wonder if you are spending a lot of time on the social media platforms and you are in business, this is the weakness for all of us. I'm also in the equation. Have we been spending that valuable time looking for a donor somewhere and understanding the requirements of that donor? Donors, usually when they come to a country, when they partner with a country, there are these who partner with the countries, they do what we call cooperation framework. And those cooperation frameworks define the funding themes. You can have a framework with a donor that is saying, this year or the next 5 years, we are going to fund energy projects. We are going to fund the WASH project, water sanitation and hygiene. This is our theme this year under the cooperation framework. So, but to get to know that information, if I use my social media platforms profitably, I should be able to understand just a few things so that even if you went to somebody to support you to develop a proposal, you already know, you already also have an idea to contribute to the development process. So that will help, if not on the cost, but I think on some other things. You feel you own that project. So stay informed. Let's use our social media platforms profitably, because you can spend a lot of time on the social media and you have not got any information. Being organized means that you have got the right policies. I talked of the ESG policy. Most businesses these days do not have those policies. They do not even know about them. There's an article that I threw on the LinkedIn the other day. It is still open for discussion. And how are we prepared? Let me also mention something here, that the funds that we have now, remember the other story which I gave you for the man from the answer community? That story, the gentleman will have small articles, small assets, and small money. Those ones are very, very important for you to access future grant funding. Why? Because if I came today to you, I would really want to know, what have you managed before? What has been the size? And I'm going to share with us an assessment after this presentation. And just you tickle yourself and say, even when there's a grant of 50,000, 500,000 shillings tomorrow, can I be able to qualify for that grant the way I am now? You know? So self-assessment to begin with will be critical on how we are prepared for our policies, the kind of strategies that we have. Most organizations don't have strategic plans. They don't have business plans, but strategic plans are very, very important documents. And you don't need to go to a consultant to do it. For me, my approach is a strategic plan is your document, a business plan is your document. So we should be able to work together to develop your plan, not coming to me and saying, now you give me a plan. No, it's your plan. So you should be able to defend it. Even when a call comes, you should be able to say, the things that I have planned in my strategy should be able to align with this call. And these plans and strategies are revised from time to time. The reason you revise is you want to update your strategy, you want to update your plan to the current changes and shifts in the space. For example, climate change can cause you to shift a business. You can diversify. You have been consuming alone. Now you have got the grant. You have been doing refugees. Now you want to go to wash sector. So whatever changes that are happening in the environment that are causing you to change might be triggers for you to review these plans and strategies. So when a donor reads it and reads your proposal, there should be some reasonable match. Do your homework is the same thing that I'm mentioning up there. Let us utilize all sources, internet, radios, newspapers, because the newspapers these days, they even come on the social media. There are these platforms people are using to discuss the front lines, the whatever. We utilize all those business forums, we attend them, and then we do networkings, and then we try to get as much information as we can. There is mission creep, which I talked about, so I'll go very fast on it. Focus on the why. Do you really need this grant today, or you are not ready? Do you want to launch a new program? Do you want to launch a new product? Do you want to expand the market? If the grant came today, what will you use it for? Because if you are not ready, remember the other reporting accountabilities and responsibilities, they will hit you there. And so there is need for focusing on the why. Do I need the grant now? Problem identification and solving capacity. The question we need to ask ourselves is, we must have identified a problem for which we want the grants, so that when we solve that problem, there is a wider community benefit. So where is the problem? If we have identified the problem, is it very clear to everyone? If you presented it to me the way you are seeing it, will I find it as a problem? And if indeed it is the problem, then do you have the problem solving capacity? Well, the reason we ask ourselves this question is that as you propose, you need to indicate how the program, the project will be implemented, who will be involved, with whom will you collaborate? The internal staff, if it is not enough, what strategy do you have? So all these things are questions that we ask ourselves as we do propositions. Develop an internal capacity to develop competent bids or proposals. Work with experts. Working with experts is not cheap. It is expensive, but progressively, you should be able to develop your internal capacity to at least, respond to some of these smaller bids. Those ones you can develop an internal capacity so that progressively there is no cost involved in answering to calls for grants. Remember what we said in the first quote from the Bible. We said, who of you wants to build a tower does not sit down and plan, evaluate the cost. So now, if there are grants coming in, and the grant is for 100,000, and you are spending 50,000 to pay a consultant, then what happens? Progressively, you find that space is also not appetizing because there's lack of preparation in the start to achieve some good dividends in the years to come. Then last but not least, be ready to make a local contribution that is in kind or in cash. For ownership's sake of the project, the donors will want you to demonstrate that you have got something locally you are contributing to the grant. You have heard of NADS cows. It was so common that NADS gave people cows for free. And when a cow fell sick, they would call NADS and say, your cow is sick now. So there was no sense of ownership in that approach. And I think progressively that has been changed. Grants are catalysts for change. And remember what we talked about, catalytic funding. As we write, in other words, as we write our projects, as we present our concepts, we should demonstrate that that grant will create a paradigm shift in the way the status quo is. We should see a change, and that change must be sustainable change. That's what we mean. The grants are going to come in. Of course, they are going to help you diversify the income stream. But as that diversification comes, we should also expect an amplified impact. So as we write on one side that grants are going to come, they will enhance your funding portfolio. The other side, I should see an amplified impact position. So that we should not forget. Grants, if judiciously and efficiently utilized, they should be able to maximize the impact. So remember, we are going to have the project evaluated. The grants will be evaluated. So the donor should see that there has been an impact in the community, in the project because of that support. Building sustainable communities is very key. And of course, there are these key elements that we talk about: environmental protection, social inclusion, equity. Those are the principles that we want to see coming out. Now, to stand out more, our propositions should demonstrate innovation and creativity, and this we talked about it. That is when we talk of competitiveness. Even when it is not a challenge fund, any proposal you write, there must be an edge over the others because you are not the only one proposing. Collaboration and partnerships. These days, donors have got an appetite of, if you are James Muhwezi doing a proposal for funding, surely you are not a custodian of knowledge. If you are in microfinance, somebody should be in agribusiness. Somebody should be in dairy. Somebody should be in gender, so that a combination of you, the three, can deliver equity. The women are involved because there is gender. They are getting access to money because there is microfinance. And then the other one, which I talked about. So the three of you should be able to synergize and then propose something that can deliver better results than when you're acting as a single person. So where there are chances for collaboration, let's utilize them. And that will also come by us understanding the spirit of the core. Measuring impact, what type of impact are we talking about? Remember, we've been talking about community impact, social change, economic transformation. How is that one going to come? We are talking of job creation. How many jobs have you delivered for the youth, for the women because of the grant? If you have given a household or a group, has their income levels been enhanced from point A to point B? Do we see their businesses expanding by way of the annual sales, the assets being acquired, etc.? Do we see opening another branch, etc.? So we want to see these types of benchmarks that are happening because of the grant. Beyond the funding, what happens? This speaks to the long-term sustainability of the project. And then finally, have we learned some lessons? Have we been skilled? Are we now empowered? Can we own another intervention if it came? Can the community speak to it? So these are some of the principles as we propose that we have to remind ourselves about. Are we getting tired? I'm close to finishing. And so here is a demonstration of the one template that I talked about, that you can begin to see that getting access to a fund or a grant is not as easy as the misconceptions that you saw were trying to put it. This one is just an excerpt of one of the templates that I picked out, just a portion of it. And then you see somebody is asking you a question. Are you implementing the project with a partner organization, or you are implementing alone? If this project will be implemented with partners, what part of the implementation will you and your partners be responsible for? This one is also saying that if we are implementing with a partner, it's okay. But if we are implementing with a partner, there's need for clarity. And this clarity should come both with you going for partnership. You must sign a very clear partnership agreement with your partner. And then you must sign a clear partnership agreement with the donor, so that there is no source of conflict when the project starts. Because you've seen how people change. As a project starts, there is a lot of changes that you wonder if this is a partner that you entered into a partnership with to begin with. So where there is money, dynamics try to change. Then organization's name. What is the role of your partner organization in implementing the project? Provide description. Website. Do we have websites? Country of registration, phone number, how much the partner organization is contributing. Look at this one. This is about finances. Company's past performance. What is your financial year? When is the financial year ending? Financial year 1, financial year 2, number of employees, turnover, excluding grants that you have received, if any. I think you can see what they mean by exclude the grants and tell me your turnover. Meaning that if the grants came, before the grants came, there should be some turnover. Now the grants are coming to boost, unless you are a startup grant that we talked about last time. That is why grants are of different types. There's a startup grant, is very specific, helps you to get off the ground. Once you are off the ground and business is going on, there should be some turnovers. Financial year 1, 2, 3, 4, we should see them. Has your company raised funds through other means? Investors, lending, etc. This is important because we want to demonstrate your capacity and competence and know-how of managing external funds that are not equity funds. This is very crucial. Look at this one. And this one, I'm interested in the first sentence, and I will connect it to the objective which we talked about. That we will evaluate and select the most promising applications based on the alignment with whose objectives and aims. You can see this one. We will evaluate and select the most promising applications based on their alignment with the aims and objectives of the Fund for Resilience and Prosperity. This is the donor who has put out a fund by this name. So how will the project be evaluated and selected is your demonstration of that course, of that proposal's alignment with the aims and objectives of this fund. This is the most important thing I wanted to show you, that it's not about the need that you have, it's about alignment with the donor objectives and aims in the core. Now, the rest are details really, but that is what I wanted to show you. Look at the project impact. The project impact is very important, evaluation of potential positive impacts and benefits the project will bring. So, grants are there, but the question is being able to sit down, remember sitting down, learning, evaluating what it takes, understanding the aims and objectives of the core. And then, of course, your readiness in terms of how you are organized. If you have implemented a grant before, there should be reports. We should see reports. We should see audits. You should be very compliant. with fulfilling the other local obligations of tax, of annual return filing, of transparent record keeping, evidence of meetings, policies and statements should be hung in our offices and on our project sites. All these things speaks to the organization that I'm talking about. Wow, we are almost there. And before I thank you so much and I invite questions, but I will give you an assessment before we finish. Just quickly, before you ask questions, you will do the small assessment is of 6 questions and then we proceed. Look at that. Grants are not just about funding. They are about belief in the power of social change. Use them wisely because every dollar holds the potential to transform lives and communities. This is touching. It touches my heart. And so this is why I chose to bring it. Thank you very much. Before we go to the questions and answers, allow me to show you the assessment, and then we can proceed. Let's share this one. Okay, so this is the assessment. I hope you can see it all. And this assessment, you just answer it for yourself. We are not going to answer and submit for marking, but it is an assessment for us to reflect about as we prepare to navigate the journey of grants. So the first question is, what are you? For me, if you are making an introduction to this meeting, you just say, I'm an individual, I'm a company, I'm a partnership, I'm a cooperative, I'm a bank, I'm a financial institution. Why? Because every one of these A to F that I have listed are eligible for grants. That is why I brought it. So you can answer the question, what resources have you received or managed before? Was it a loan from a financial institution? Was it a soft loan from a friend, family fund? Was it interest-free money from any organization? What kind of resources have we managed or received before? This is the question. For your answer in number 2 above, what range or volume of resources did you access or manage? Was it 1 to 10 million? Was it 10 to 5 million? Was it 50 to 200 million? Was it 200 and above? The reason I'm asking question number 3, we may have managed so much monies in the past. If such management of the money cannot be demonstrated, as in the money did not go through the banking system, so you don't have a bank statement, the money was not documented for where it came from, for what you used it for to buy, and for what sales you made as a result of buying those items, whether it was stock or an asset, the payments that you made, the documentation that you have, if that cannot be reflected, then you have not managed nothing. So this is how tough now it is for us. Have you received any funds named grants? Because now I had put named grants, assuming we did the assessment before. Now you understand the grants. So have you received any grants in the past? Or are you currently implementing a grant? If yes, how did you know about such grants? What was the purposes for which the grant was awarded? Remember, a grant is a financial award. How were the funds utilized? This is the question. Was there any gain to you? Was there any gain to the community? Can we demonstrate that? Do we have impact stories? Do we have any documentation, pictures, videos showing how the funds were utilized and whether the community and yourself benefited from point A to point B? These are the questions. What challenges did you encounter if you accessed a loan? Was there any challenge? We can go further and say, how did you solve the challenge? You accessed a grant. What challenge did you find? Throughout the application process and management processes, what challenges and how did you overcome them? Why? Because these challenges will help us learn lessons so that we are better placed to apply for grants in the future And what sources of grants do you know? And this is the assessment that I wanted to leave with us, to just reflect on it and then see in the future whether we can be more ready than we currently are. So thank you very much. And I beg to hear and invite the questions.
Thank you so much, James, for that elaborate and detailed presentation. A lot of useful tips that we have received. Thank you so much for taking time to empower our team. I think we have just about 10 minutes for questions. I will allow some questions to come through. If you put your hand up, we can be able to allow you to have a question done. So at this moment, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. James, we have a couple of questions already in the chat box, but I think the question of what opportunities are there some places people can go to be able to get information, that would be very helpful. I'll allow Anne, and then Innocent to ask their questions. And go ahead. Jody, help me. Please ask your question. Anna, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much, James, for that wonderful presentation. Mine is not a question. It's just an addition. And the addition I want to make is the word additionality. Many proposals now require what they call additionality. And it's a bit complicated, plainly, but then they want you to demonstrate that this kind of money that you're seeking will actually change something without which you wouldn't have achieved. So many proposals right now require the writer demonstrate additionality. That's the only thing I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for that addition. Innocent, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Ronald.
Innocent.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, good morning, and thank you for the presentation, Mr. James. There are two acronyms you used. One was EDI, and another one has just jumped out of my head. I'd want a more clarification on them. Then also, I would love to know, like we are saying, yeah, grants are there, but so many times, you know, we are in Uganda. So many times you meet some calls on some websites, you try out, and things don't go well. Then this Ugandan mind come about, like, couldn't this be maybe con men or whatever? So there could be a challenge of getting the calls from the right people also. So how do we ascertain that these people making the call for grants are the right people, or maybe there could be people who are looking for details of people whom they start hacking or maybe con. So maybe you give guidance towards that. Thank you very much.
Right. So I can answer
Thank
that
you.
one.
James, and go ahead and answer that round of questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll see how we can run.
Right. Thank you very much, Innocent, for the call. ESG is environmental, social, and governance. we want to support projects that are environmentally friendly, that they meet the social objective, integration of everyone is involved in the project, especially the vulnerable groups. Then there is no discrimination. The project does not discriminate. That is the social aspects. And then governance, how will the project be managed? Innocent wants to get money and manage it alone. Sometimes it is not very appetizing that you want to get money and manage it alone. There has to be some kind of structure, because that structure engenders transparency and accountability. That is the whole spirit behind it. And then you have EDI, which is the equity, diversity, and inclusion. Equity, it is equitable access, diversity, and then inclusion. So those are the acronyms. And then the challenge of getting calls from the right people. Incidentally, the donors are not in the space. They are not in the cloud. If they advertise a call in the papers, it is official. And that official, they also send the contact numbers and the emails. Most of them, we can even reach out to them by email, by telephone for clarification. I have seen this advert. Is it a right advert? So it is easy, really, for us to verify. But what I have seen on the social media platform, most of them that they share, even beyond calls, they go to jobs that a certain job has been advertised. That one has to be verified. Sometimes is a lot of bad things happening across social media platforms. Thank you.
Super. James, do you just quickly want to comment once again on which websites can people visit? Where can people find some of these opportunities? Certainly, I've talked about the newspapers, but are there some other areas where you think people can be able to?
Oh, yes. Even locally here, let's first begin with local opportunities that are available. We have PSFU, I think, Private Sector Foundation. There are calls running about the women on the GROW project, generating growth opportunities for women enterprises is there. This is a fund that is going to support women in business upgrade from being a micro to medium to, a micro, small, and medium enterprise. The funds are there. I think the calls are going to come in May. Please be ready. The Ministry of Gender and the Private Sector Foundation. Then on the website, we have funds for NGOs. It is an authentic website. It will come. Then go to UNDP website. We have got small grants program. It's also a program that is inviting fund proposals for people to bid and get money. Then we have Challenge Fund for under NSSF and Stanbic Bank. They have got funds that are there circulating around. So these are the local opportunities that you can quickly find and see if you can meet the criteria. Then we have got MasterCard Foundation. I think it has launched a call, and it is an authentic call depending on the size of your enterprise and the idea you want to front. The opportunities are there, purely grants. And we can share other websites and opportunities with Enterprise Uganda as we go on.
Super, super. Thanks a lot, James. It's been a very insightful 1.5 hours. We are very grateful for the time you have taken off to come and share with us. I'm going to request that you put that evaluation form in the chat box. And possibly when you send it, then we'll be able to share it with the people who are on the call. And yes, you mentioned the list. Just give us a quick list. We'll also share it. Everyone was with the list from James, which points you in some directions or places where you could be able to find some grant financing. Yeah, we've come to the end of our day. A big thank you to everyone who has joined. James, I just want you to take a minute to just take your final remarks.
I didn't hear that, Mr. Ronald.
Just take one minute finish and just make your final remarks, and we can.
Oh, great. In terms of the final remarks, I really want to thank Enterprise Uganda again. I want to thank the audience. I can see the type of questions and thank you notes that you are sending, and thank you for sparing time and paying attention. Please let us keep connected. I have put my contacts in the presentation, and I think we'll also share them on the website, but our office is at Kanjocha Street, plot 98, and we can always connect in case you need any clarification, further clarification, any support in line with resource mobilization and the assessment studies and institutional development, we can be able to support. Thank you very much.
Super. Thanks a lot, James. It's been an honor having you. A big thank you to everyone who has joined. It was a big team which joined in today. I will share James's presentation on the email together with some of the leads which he has and the evaluation which he so ably took us through. James, I'm also going to request that you put your contact in the chat box. Some people can be able to pick it up right now. Thank you so much for being here.